Hello and welcome, and we're here at Holistic Investments, and I'm your host, Constantin Kogan, and I'm delighted to have here again Lou Kerner. So Lou is a good friend, and he's a former macro analyst. He's now a partner in blockchain Coinvestors and a founder of CryptoMondays, along with like multiple other companies that he founded, invested in, and we're going to talk about a lot of really interesting topics, ranging from how to build a community in crypto. And Lou is the one who knows everything about it because CryptoMondays has one of the biggest communities in the world, ranging of like 64 cities. Then we're going to talk about the metaverse, the Bitcoin prediction, the SPACs, and a lot of other fun topics. But for now, Lou, good morning, and thank you for being here.
Hey, good morning, Constantine. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I mean, just because we're talking still about digital assets, so we're throwing a legal disclaimer that this content is for informational purposes only, and you should not construe any such information or other material as legal, tax, investment, financial, or any other advice. So now we can talk about a lot of things, but I want to focus on some of the things that you're known to, at least in New York community, right? So like CryptoMondays, I remember when it started and was so exciting when it was like only like, New York and then a few other cities in the world. And now it's grown to a huge community of 64 cities, like thousands of people who actually just for someone who doesn't know, people go to Meetup, they meet like hundreds of them, and Lou was the founder. And can you maybe say a little bit about it? Like, what is the importance of building a community in crypto?
Sure. Well, real quick, by way of background, I started my career as an equity analyst on Wall Street, and I left in January of 2000 to run my first digital company. The second that I ran was called Bolt, and it was the largest social network in the world before MySpace. We peaked at 23 million kids in 2006. And so, I spent a lot of time, in community and trying to understand communities, and continued to invest in and around communities first as an angel investor and then as a VC. And when I saw the crypto light on June 29th, 2017, what I saw, and I think crypto to some degree is infinite. I think it's the biggest thing to happen in the history of humanity. And so I think when everybody sees it, everybody sees something different based on the prism at which they're looking at the world through, based on their life experience. For me, when I saw the crypto light, what I saw was that for the first time in history, we had a set of tools to solve for the community instead of the man in the middle. And that community is really at the center of crypto. And, we're early days in terms of managing the community, understanding, token economics, governance, and consensus. But for me, I was actually a Meetup shareholder, and the CEO kept on saying, when are you going to start a Meetup? When are you going to start one? So I started one, and they're like magic. The people you want to show up just, magically show up. So when I got into crypto, there was actually a great weekly meeting at the Galaxy office in New York.
I remember that.
And it was awesome, but it was tough to get a ticket to get an invite. And so, I had a lot of friends asking me, can you get me in? Can you get me in? Can you get me in? After doing that, for a few months, I got an email from Bagatelle, which is a sick bar restaurant in New York. And they sent me an email saying, you do meetups. If you'd like to do a meetup at our bar restaurant, we'd be happy to host you on a Monday for free. And so I wrote them back and said, thanks for your kind offer. But what I'd really like is 10% of the bar, which we gave to charity, and every Monday till the end of time. And we started it on January 8th, 2018, which was the peak day of crypto for almost 3 years. We had 300 people at the first one. We had 350 people at the second one, 3 TV crews, and we decided to blow it out around the world in a decentralized fashion. So, anybody could start up a crypto money in their city. We would connect them on Meetup and help market it. But, it was theirs to run as they wanted to. And we just had the 64th city open up actually yesterday, which was Crypto Monday, Orange County. When we could still travel in 2009, I went to 14 different Crypto Mondays. My favorite in the world, and there are a lot of good ones, is Paris. It's at Station F, this 6 shared workspace in Paris. Seats 200, and it sells out within a couple minutes. I went to Crypto Monday Shanghai twice. It totally rocks. And it's cool. I'd never been to Shanghai, but I got, but I'm a crypto guy in Shanghai because Crypto Monday rocks.
No, that's impressive. And I remember those parties in Bagatelle. It was really fun. Yeah, but you're right. It was limited. So I want to ask you, so a lot of people, as you know, right now, there's a second wave of this like ICO, IDO era, right? And a lot of people are building communities online, right? We're talking about this Discord, Telegram, Twitter, obviously, right? You're specialized in building communities offline and online. So maybe you can talk a little bit of the importance of what's the difference between like, leveraging the community, like, well, like offline and online.
Sure. Well, first, to start in at a very high level, you have to even define what is a community, right? We're at the very early days, of this, and one of the challenges is we all use the same words, but quite often they mean something different to different people. So for me, community means an ecosystem where everybody gets more out of it than they put in, which is kind of magical if you think about it. And, I first really learned about this when I was running Bolt, and we had all these advertisers who wanted to drive engagement with their advertising, but we couldn't actually pay the kids enough money that it would incentivize them and be profitable for the advertisers. But what we ended up doing was giving them badges for participating in different things on the, on the network. And the badges would scroll around the profile, conferring status in the community. And so, about 2 million of the kids would do almost anything we asked them to get that badge, conferring status. And the great thing is that status is free to give, but the community members, 10% of them valued it, very highly. And that's kind of what I call value delta. We can give something to members that costs you a lot less than they value it. And I think that value delta, the bigger that value delta is, the bigger the community can become on average. I think there's a high correlation, which is why the biggest communities in the world are religions, because they create faith at zero cost, and people often value it greater than their entire life.
Yeah, that's an interesting example. It is like actually what Christianity and Islam actually more than 1 billion communities all over the world, right? So
exactly, they're huge communities, and people get a tremendous amount of value out of it.
So how can we so what we're seeing right now is a lot of the companies, what they do when they start, especially their business, they're building communities which are disintegrated, right? So they're doing exactly what you're saying, but they're centric towards their particular idea, whether it's a game or a DEX or an AMM or any other image. How do we make sure that these communities will start also cross integrations and making sure that they help each other?
Well, so first, starting at at the base level of a community, right? If you think, okay, what's the atomic level of community? So I think the atomic level of community is a marriage, right? It's just two people, and they're forming, really a community amongst the two of them. And the weird thing is, if you think about it, is that they create this community without generally a single discussion on governance and consensus. And that generally creates a lot of problems. Again, staying at a high level, when I was running Bolt, we did 8 acquisitions of other community-related sites that were generally, and I was the first person called Zuckerberg offered to buy Facebook, and ended up 5 years later, in 2009, or 4 years later, 2009, buying some secondary shares and writing the first Wall Street style research report on Facebook. And what I highlight in that report, it's still up on Tumblr, is my core belief is that you're either growing the engagement of your community members or you're dying. And so in my mind, what you need to do is continue to have ways to engage and provide value to the community members, and have ways for the community members to add value back to the community. And I think one of the best communities, well, first, I think the most amazing community in crypto is Ethereum. So I became a big bull on Ethereum when I went to my first ETH Denver, and I saw how incredibly strong the community was. Just thousands of the best and brightest programmers, devs. We're so committed to helping build Ethereum. The latest example of a great community, I think, is Bored Ape Yacht Club. Now, at the core of most communities is making money, right? So, you can go into the, Chainlink, has a incredibly active Telegram group, but people are there to make money, and that's great. Nothing's wrong with that. But, what you have to understand is that, when there's easy money to be had during bull markets like today, you're going to see, growing engaged communities. But when, the pendulum swings the other side, and the only thing I'm certain of is at some point it's going to, swing to the other side, is then a lot of that community goes away. So you want to have other values that you are able to give to your community. Again, Bored Ape Yacht Club, I think, is a great example of a community that confers tremendous status on the people. That's why, so many people who have Bored Apes have it, as their avatar, because, they enjoy that status. It's also great at being a part of that community gives you access to events that you wouldn't otherwise have access to, again, providing value to community members.
So that is a really interesting way to bring it up, because it made me think, like, for example, lately I've noticed that there are people who are Bitcoin maximalists, like Bitcoin communities, one like the first and the biggest one, and then we see Ethereum community. And there was, and I'm sure, like, I want to try to touch this unpopular topic, which there was some animosity, like, some hostility between the two communities. People who are like, altcoin oriented, and people who are Bitcoin like centric, right? So maybe from your vantage point, like, from your experience, what would you advise? How do we make sure that there is no such thing in our community? Because normally crypto is very friendly environment. We tend to help each other. We tend to support each other. But there's one, like, with the biggest guys, like, they're trying to create this, like, centrism, and it's not always healthy,
Sure. I like, have you ever heard of the Altalena?
Yeah.
So most people, who are listening to this probably have never heard of the Altalena. The Altalena was a boat when Israel was preparing to declare itself a nation. They knew that they were going to get attacked, and they needed arms. And it was a struggle for them to get the arms for them to protect themselves. This is 1948, 49. And so Menachem Begin was able to get a ship filled with guns from France, and he sailed it to, or he had a crew sail it, of Jews. I mean, Israel wasn't even formed yet, to Israel. And the Israeli army, at that time, Ben Gurion was the head of the provisional government, sunk the ship and killed Jews. And all those arms fell to the to the bottom. And what that taught me is that revolutions are messy. They're not easy. And this is a revolution, right? This is when history of this time is written. This was the revolution about how the whole world works. And there's a better way. And that's what, and so when I first got into the community, I found a lot of the behavior abhorrent, the animosity between the communities. Now, I actually believe that's a feature and not a bug, and that they're hard. Revolutions are hard, and we need divergent opinions.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're basically you're not against it. You're saying it's healthy and it's going to actually help us to grow, and the competition will bring the best out of the communities because of that, right?
I think so. I think the reason that we have all this animosity is because of all of the passion that we have about creating this better future. We have different visions about how to create it. I think at a high level it's the same, right? It's when you get down into the details, the differences, which I think those are small. It's kind of reminds me of the different, right? There are two major sides, I guess, to Islam. Mm-hmm. And to the rest of the world, those differences are infinitesimal. And we can't even tell those differences, but to those parties, they're so huge that they're willing to kill each other over it.
Yeah. No, I would agree with you 100%. I think it's even for good. So I'm just curious to hear your opinion. So coming back to the Bitcoin subject, so I've read recently that you made a prediction on the Bitcoin price. Like, and as a macro analyst, I'm curious to hear, like, if I may. Like, again, it's not a financial advice, but you were talking about that you see it's gonna go to 1 million, right? So can you substantiate a little bit this point of view?
Sure. So again, this is just a very macro view, and one of the challenges, obviously, we all face in crypto is valuing crypto, right? How do you value utility tokens? I think we're in the very, very early days of that. But in terms of Bitcoin, trying to think, okay, what can Bitcoin become? How big can Bitcoin get? I personally, for me, I'm not a maximalist either. I actually have one business orthodoxy, and my one business orthodoxy is to not have any business orthodoxies. But for me, Bitcoin is a store of value, and it's not just, and all through history, the primary store of value for thousands of years has been gold. And now we have something that's, not just, 10% better than gold or 50% better than gold. It's 10 times better, 100 times better than gold in my view. And whenever you get that kind of, logarithmic, geometric growth in the value provided, you get generally geometric growth in the size of that market. So today, in round figures, the store of value market is a $10 trillion market. And Bitcoin has, a couple percent, around getting close to 10% of that. Mm-hmm. And so if you think about that market now growing over the next 10 years from 10 trillion to 40 trillion, which I think is very reasonable, because now it's so much better. And Bitcoin gets 50% of that. So gold stays at 50, Bitcoin gets 50. Bitcoin is worth 20 trillion, and that's, in round figures, $1 million Bitcoin. And I think by that point, we'll be talking about it in terms of Sats, right? So at that point, a Sat is a penny, mm-hmm. right? And I think, right now, part of the struggle for a lot of new people is, it's so expensive. It's, $40,000 of Bitcoin. I can't afford that. But everybody, you can get 100 Sats for $1. That sounds a lot better.
Yeah, no, I think that people don't still think in sats. That's the challenging part of them, right? For them, it's like either pennies and dollars, and they still convert all the time the price of Bitcoin. But there are other people who are in deep in the industry, and they are actually doing the parallels, right? Like you do, right? I've actually co-authored one report where I predicted a similar thing, but 400K, by the end of 2005, right? So you're even more bullish than me in this case, which is great. I'm actually happy if you're right, because then everyone will benefit from this. Okay, so in terms of
and by the way, I would also say I'm a huge believer in something called the Murray's Law. And in Murray's Law, he was a professor at Stanford in the 70s, Roy Amara, when he came up with it. And that's the fact that the impact of all great new technology, like crypto, I believe is that the impact of that technology is overestimated in the short run and underestimated in the long run. It's always much bigger than anybody thinks it's going to be.
Yeah, I'm sure in '90s nobody could have predicted what's going to happen to .com era and where we're going to be now. So that's similar to what we're seeing right now. Some of the inventions took 100 years to actually adopt. So, and we're only 12, 13 years in as an industry, right? So yeah, it's super early, that's for sure. The question is if there are a lot of other questions, which again, we're probably not going to have even an hour to discuss all the regulatory questions. But I think any prediction is a bold statement and it helps people to get some perspective. Even though I don't care if somebody is right or wrong, the fact that we have enough, as you know, there's a good Hebrew word chutzpah, the I don't even know how to translate it properly into English, right? So
balls.
Yeah, bold guts. So we have the guts to even talk about it, right? To give this prediction, and we don't care what people think. That's already something. And you know, a lot, I've spoke to Dan Moorhead about it. I spoke to a lot of other people who have macro background, and it was hard. You know, 2015, 16, nobody would agree with them. Now, like everybody is pouring like billions in their, you know, hedge funds, right? So it's fine. Now, coming back to your investment career, right? You've mentioned that you were like you wrote in a tremendous analysis of Facebook, where nobody understood like where it's going to go, like, you know, and then you invested
Up to the March of 2010, and it was actively traded at 16 billion on the secondary market. And I said it was worth 50 at the time, and I got laughed at. And you know, again, like Amare's law, it was actually worth a lot more than 50.
Exactly. So that's the point. So you have you just don't have like, you're not one of those people who are coming into crypto from kind of nowhere, like, and I would say like you have a traditional fintech experience and analysis, right? So what do you see of other trends? Where are we heading in the nearest, like, you know, I think 5 years, it's like a long period for crypto. Let's talk about 2 to 3 years even.
Sure. Well, first, when I talk about this 10-year, you know, time frame is I'm, you know, if I'm right, you know, and could certainly be wrong, but if I'm right and we're at $1 million Bitcoin in 10 years, yeah, I'm pretty sure I know how we're going to get there, and that's by going up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down. And so for me, I, you know, as somebody who really invests based on more based on macro trends. You know, all of that up and down, you know, if I'm right in 10 years, all of that is noise. So I'm really, you know, trying to separate the noise from what's really meaningful. And, you know, it's, yeah, I think, you know, over the long term, the trajectory is up and to the right, but as we've seen on multiple occasions in crypto, you know, we've been down 70, 80, 90%. And so I don't believe those swings are over. So when I talk with people, I really say what you want to do is build a diversified portfolio of assets. That's why, you know, I'm at Blockchain Coinvestors, a crypto fund to fund. You know, we really believe that, you know, in the next 10 years, you know, the internet gave us $5 trillion entity. I think crypto is going to give us 10, you know, multi-trillion dollar entities. Mm-hmm. And we want to get as many of those 10 as possible. And I think that the way to optimize for that is a fund to fund. You know, so I think everybody, you know, we also run an AngelList syndicate, the Blockchain Co-Investors Syndicate on AngelList. You know, and I really tell all of our investors, you know, that they should invest in everything we bring. Everything we bring, I think, you know, we think is a good company. Nobody knows which of those are going to be the Facebooks and Apples, you know, of the crypto generation. But, you know, if you hold a pool of them, that's how you'll optimize your chances of getting those multi-trillion dollar winners.
Yeah, I mean, I do believe in like a modern portfolio theory, diversification. It is important. Like, you know, one of the first books, like Crypto Assets, and the basics of, like, you know, that I've read was actually based on this theory. And I couldn't agree with you more in terms of fund to funds, because, you know, I've been running, but also like Bitbull Capital before. So and by the way, Matthew Lemerrill, who's your partner, also, like, he was an advisor for us. So so my question to you, I'll be curious to bring this parallel between the syndicate, which you're in, and fund to funds. Maybe for people who haven't participated in both, maybe you can outline what is the main difference.
Sure. Well, the fund to fund, you need to be, you know, the minimum there is pretty significant. So we wanted to also, you know, make investing available to people who were writing smaller checks. So, you know, AngelList, the minimum investment is $1,000. And the significant majority of companies that we're bringing to AngelList are companies that our VCs are investing in. And so we tell, you know, we're investing in 26 of the leading crypto VCs, and we tell them, if you can get additional allocation in any of your deals, you know, we will take it, you know, and make it available to the broader community.
Mm-hmm. So the added value that you have is you have a bigger bigger support from a smaller checks, people who also can be users of the project, and they can maybe help with any other PR and marketing efforts, right? And also you help them to syndicate. Otherwise, they wouldn't, for the users, for the investors themselves, they would never have an ability to invest $1,000 to $10,000 in, let's say, Coinbase, right? It just probably was not possible
Exactly.
before the IPO, right?
Exactly. So this is a way for the average investor to get involved in these names.
Yes. So fund of funds you run is a traditional. You need to be a credit investor, right? So you do always fancy things as KYC, ML, and you check them, make sure. And I know, how do you deal with people? I'm curious. I'm sure there's no good answer to this, but let me ask you, right? So people who have they're almost accredited investors. For some reason, this particular year, they cannot get from their accountants the status, especially if they're holding a lot of crypto and they don't want to cash out to get the status. How do you deal with those people?
Unfortunately, KYC, AML, there are companies that you can work with who will provide that accreditation, and so that's what we do. So we're not really able to impact it. From our viewpoint, it's binary. It's either yes or no, and we get that from third parties.
I get it. Okay, so that's very simple for on your side. And in terms of the syndicate, so anyone can participate, right? Is there
the syndicate? Unfortunately, is through AngelList, and AngelList also at the moment is for accredited investors. When AngelList started. I'm sorry, when crypto started going up and to the right in 2017, I believe, and everybody at AngelList was, oh my God, I want to get to crypto. AngelList started Republic and CoinList. So CoinList was for accredited investors to get access to crypto deals, and Republic was for unaccredited investors to get access to crypto. So Republic doesn't have that syndicate model yet. So we're not on Republic, but Republic is a great place for investors who can't, who aren't accredited, to get access to great crypto companies.
Yeah, that is true. I actually advise a lot of people Republic as well, and I'm looking forward to get an interview with the CEO of Republic as well. So what about the non-US citizens, right? So how do we do with people who are let's say, accredited investor status, as you for sure, but for people who are listening to this, it might be different in each country, right? So
well, we're run by US laws, and so the US laws for accredited, it only counts for we have our way of doing it, and the third parties again do that accreditation.
Got it. So you cannot do you don't foresee that there will be a separate vehicle, like an SPV, that will actually help you to syndicate money from non-US investors. You don't.
Oh, sure. Well, look, I mean, most projects now that are raising from outside the US because the laws are so uncertain in the US. And so, most projects, if you're outside the US, you don't need to be accredited, to invest in most ICOs.
Yeah. So that's another thing. So what are the most notable investments that you did in your syndicate and your fund of funds? Maybe you can list them.
Sure. Well, I mean, I'll tell you we just started the AngelList syndicate. Did our first deal in January. And that deal actually just started trading on CoinList. On Coinbase. And that was Braintrust. So Braintrust is a super interesting company. It's actually rapidly growing. It's a kind of it's a decentralized talent agency, or where devs go and get projects that a lot of Fortune 500 companies are putting projects there because they know that this is a highly vetted group of programmers. And so, they, and it's decentralized, it's owned by the community. So as opposed to, Fiverr and, other places where people can go to work through Web2 companies that take, or Uber or DoorDash, right? Who generally take 20 to 30% of revenue, and also are constantly changing the rules on the community. The community runs this. And so, they take 0% of the fees paid to the members, to the community members from the companies. So it's really, I think a tremendous service for everybody, creating this community where everybody's getting more out of it than they put in. And so, the round we were in was, I think 66 cents a token, and, the tokens are trading at around $10 today. So, that's a great return for the first investment.
Oh yeah, that's I did the multiples in my head. I will not announce them. Great. No, so listen, congrats with that. And I know that you did some other unicorn investments, even and you're running some SPACs. Maybe you can say really briefly in the how would you do a SPAC for the crypto company? Is there any difference, or the structure in this is all the same?
Sure. No, the structure all the same. SPACs have been around for a long time, but have really grown significantly just over the last couple of years. And the simple way that I think of a SPAC, and that stands for Special Purpose Acquisition Vehicle. And so SPACs go public, and then they find a private company to merge with, thus bringing that private company public. So what a SPAC really is, it's a vehicle enabling private companies to go public. And the advantages for companies merging with a SPAC instead of going public themselves is, first, it's very expensive to go public. You have to hire lawyers and underwriters. It's very expensive. It takes a long time. And there's also great uncertainty about it. So you can say, I want to go public, and spend all of this money, take all of this company resources for months and months and months and months and months, and then get ready to go public. And now the public markets are closed, or for whatever reason, the industry you're in is out of favor and you can't go public. So when you merge with the SPAC, all of that risk goes away. The SPAC is already public. So, and you can go public and close the merger in a lot less time than it would take you starting from scratch to IPO. So those are the major advantages to merging with the SPAC for those companies that want to go public. And we believe that there are going to be companies like Coinbase, that they're going to be hundreds of publicly traded crypto companies in 10 years. So similar to how there are we're today thousands of publicly traded internet companies.
So you mentioned a word, expensive. I'm sorry, it's triggered me another question, which is, if you would compare the traditional IPO company and all the expenses, and you would compare a SPAC, can you say roughly the numbers? Obviously, it varies, but roughly, what is the difference in terms of the cost for the founder?
Well, so the SPAC really bears all the costs. So, there are costs involved in a merger, but there are a small fraction of the costs associated with, that the company that you're merging with will pay if they want to hire bankers. There's an expense to that, but it's less than hiring bankers generally to do an IPO, which is, generally 6% of monies raised. And so, but they also have to pay before that. They have to pay lawyers and accountants and to do all the filings, and that's, gets into 7 figures, and that's a lot of money for most companies. So, and it's also at risk. If you don't go public, that money is just flushed down the drain. Now, those companies have to spend a tiny fraction of that on the merger, because that money has already been spent by the SPAC.
So roughly, let's say if you say 6%, let's imagine we're doing $100 million IPO, right? And 6% of the raise, let's imagine 6 million plus lawyers, right? Let's say another $500,000 at least, right? Let's be generous, or more.
Yeah, that as a round number, that's a very reasonable number. Yeah,
exactly, right? So
accountants, and valuation people, yes. and.
So roughly, let's say overall, like 10 million for everything, right? So, no, as opposed to SPAC, like, can we say that the roughly the ratio is 1 to 10, almost like you for
Well,
1
I think,
million.
I think again, the SPAC is going public. So the SPAC has to spend all of that money, but it's the SPAC investors who are at risk, not the company.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's why it's been de-risked, because the SPAC investors have already taken on that risk. So the SPAC company itself, now the 6% you have to pay a banker, that's a success fee. So if you're not successful, you have to pay, a small fraction of that.
Got it. I mean, yeah, we should do a separate show on the SPACs. I guess I have so many questions, but I don't want to overwhelm people like right now. This is like a brief, I would say, prelude, for before the real conversation about SPACs, right? I follow Chamath very closely, right? And he's like now considered one of the kings of SPACs, right? There's a lot of criticism towards SPACs as well. So that's why I'm not going to even start this conversation. But it's definitely a very interesting vehicle to bring the company public faster. I know 2 of my friends are doing it in Toronto Stock Exchange, and basically like in half a year, they're already like public, right? As opposed to waiting for the listings, as you mentioned, right? It can take a long time and 7 digits like in lawyers, and you're not even guaranteeing the success, right? So, I mean, I'm, Lou, you're one of those people who like you're intellectual and you're polymath. So I can talk with you like for hours, but like I know knowing that it's like it's a New York morning, and I want to be also very kind of cognizant about your time. So one of the last questions, because of the name of my show is Holistic Investments, I always tend to ask people, and I specifically stop notifying people about this question. I want to ask you, what is the meaning in life for you? Like you're successful. You're doing a lot of wonderful things. You're also sharing money for charity. That I know that's your kind of rule in life. You're helping a lot of people. You're helping a lot of entrepreneurs. But what is the personal meaning of life for you?
For me, I've got 3 kids now. I've got 3 sons, 18, 20, and 23. And at this point, I kind of feel like, I'm, me and generation, we have to take ownership of the world now that we're going to be handing off to our kids. In what world are we going to leave the kids? And one of the reasons I'm so excited about being a part of the crypto industry is, I think that the world is in a bad place. I think the US is in a bad place. And I think that if we can leverage these technologies and hand the power back to the people, back to the community, I think we have the opportunity to make the world a better place for billions of people. So that's, and I'm a capitalist too. I'm excited about, I think we are going to make a lot of money in crypto, and that's super exciting. But the even more exciting part, I think, for lots of people, including myself, about crypto is making the world a better place.
Perfect. Thank you so much. It was really great to learn from you. And look, whatever you do, I wish you success. I know that you will invest in more unicorns, and you will help, and that will allow you to help more people and bring to our kids a better future.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Constantin. Thanks for everything you do for the community as well.
Thank you so much.